When I first met him, I never expected things to turn the way they did. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. My husband was a good man, he loved me, took care of me, and our family. But as the years passed, I began to feel that something was missing. It wasn't an obvious emptiness, but a quiet, creeping sense that we were no longer connecting. We were more like roommates than a married couple, and it bothered me in a way I couldn't ignore. I didn't want to admit it, but I was yearning for attention. I wanted to feel desired, to feel like I was more than just a wife and a mother. And then I met him. The moment we crossed paths, everything changed. He was everything I hadn't realized I needed: confident, charismatic, sharp, and most importantly, persistent. He knew I was married, and if anything, that only seemed to make him more interested. It wasn't something I planned. It just happened, and I didn't know how to stop it. I won't lie, there was something thrilling about it. I hadn't felt this alive in years. It wasn't an instant connection, not love at first sight or anything dramatic like that. It built slowly, over time. We started talking more, exchanging casual words, then deeper conversations. He seemed to understand me, in a way that no one else did. He paid attention, not just to what I said, but how I said it, how I felt. I hadn't realized how much I was missing that kind of attention until it was suddenly there. But then came the first moment of doubt. My husband had started pulling away more, his work schedule stretched longer, and when he was home, he was exhausted, distant. One evening, I was at a coffee shop, working on some emails, when I ran into him. He sat down across from me, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Hey," he said with that half smile that always made my heart skip. "How's everything?" I looked up at him, startled, but something inside me stirred. "It's fine. I guess, the usual." He tilted his head. "The usual? That doesn't sound like much fun." I laughed, though it felt forced. "Yeah, it's not just life. You look like you could use a change of scenery," he said, his voice soft but direct. "What if I could give you a break from the usual?" I felt a strange flutter in my chest, a mix of excitement and guilt. But I didn't pull back. "A break? From what?" "From everything," he said, leaning forward slightly. "From the routine, the boredom." I swallowed, the words sticking in my throat. I don't know if that's a good idea. But he wasn't about to let it go. "It doesn't have to be anything big, just a little escape. It's not about doing something wrong, it's about doing something for yourself." His words lingered in my mind long after we parted. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something I couldn't name, but somehow knew was inevitable. It was as if he saw me for who I really was, and not just the role I'd been playing for so long. The next day, he texted me. "I've been thinking about you a lot. I think you deserve something more than this." The message sent a rush of heat through my body, something both dangerous and enticing. I felt like I was being pulled into a current, and no matter how much I tried to fight it, I couldn't stop myself. I had been starving for attention, for a connection, and here it was, right in front of me. I stared at the message for a long time before I replied. "What do you mean?" The next response came almost immediately. I think you know exactly what I mean." It was bold, and it felt good. I hated how much I was drawn to his words, how much I wanted to reply with something reckless, something that would prove I wasn't just a dutiful wife, that I could still feel something more, something real. But I didn't. Not right away. That night, my husband came home late. He barely said a word, his mind clearly elsewhere. I tried to start a conversation, but it was like talking to a wall. I made dinner, but it sat untouched. I felt the familiar ache in my chest, the loneliness, the lack of intimacy. And then, in the silence of the evening, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. "I was thinking about you today. I think we should talk soon. Let's make it happen." I didn't know what to do with it. On one hand, I knew it wasn't something I should entertain. But on the other, I couldn't help but wonder. What if? What if I wasn't just a wife? What if I was more? The days following that message felt like a blur. I couldn't stop thinking about him. About what he had said, about what I had felt. It was like a spark had been ignited in me, and now I couldn't put it out. Every glance, every word, every message seemed to pull me deeper into something I wasn't sure I could control. And yet, I didn't want to control it. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I kept telling myself I was just curious, that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew the truth. I was craving more than just attention. I was craving a connection. Something real. Something raw. I wasn't getting that at home, And the more I spent time with him, the more I realized how much I had been missing. I tried to convince myself it was harmless, just flirting, harmless fun. But each time I saw him, the line between harmless and dangerous seemed blurrier. It started with small, innocent encounters. He'd ask how I was doing, how my day went. It felt like nothing at first, but the more we talked, the more I felt understood. It wasn't just about physical attraction. It was the way he listened, the way he saw me as more than just a wife. I hadn't felt that seen in a long time. One evening, we met for drinks. It was supposed to be just a quick catch-up, but when I saw him, I felt an instant pull. He was sitting at the bar, his back straight, his eyes scanning the room. But when he saw me, everything else disappeared. It was like I was the only one in the world. "Hey," he said, smiling with that confident grin that made my stomach flip. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the breathlessness in my voice. I hated how he had that effect on me. He pulled out a chair for me and I sat down, feeling like I was in a movie. There was something electric between us. Something I couldn't deny. "So, how's life?" he asked, his voice easy and relaxed, but I knew he was waiting for more. "Busy?" I said. "You know, same old. Kids, work, home." He raised an eyebrow. "Same old, huh? Doesn't sound like you're getting much excitement." I laughed, trying to hide how much his words stung. "I don't really need excitement," I said, my smile a little too tight. "Just peace, you know." He leaned forward, eyes intense. "Peace is overrated. You deserve more than that." I looked away, trying to hide the heat that was rising in my chest. I wasn't prepared for this. To hear someone actually say it out loud. It wasn't about peace or routine, it was about wanting something else, wanting him. Before I could respond, he reached over and brushed his hand against mine. The touch was light, but it sent a wave of electricity through me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My heart was racing. "You don't have to settle for what you have, you know," he said softly. "You're not just a wife. You're a woman. And you deserve to feel alive." I swallowed, my throat dry. "I know," I whispered. It wasn't what I had planned to say, but it was the truth. I did know, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. We spent the rest of the evening talking, laughing, and flirting in a way that felt completely natural, even though I knew it shouldn't. Every word that came from his lips felt like it was for me, like he was trying to pull me closer into his orbit. And, God help me, I wanted to go. When we said goodbye that night, he didn't kiss me, but he didn't need to. His touch, the way his fingers lingered on my hand, was enough. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and every part of me wanted to jump. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing. Was I making a huge mistake? Was I betraying my marriage? My husband? The guilt gnawed at me, but it wasn't enough to pull me back. I wanted more. More than what I had with my husband, more than the dull routine of daily life. I wanted to feel something real, something raw, and I couldn't stop thinking about him. The next day, I couldn't focus. Every text from him, every message, seemed to send me spiraling. We kept texting, and each message made me want him more. The line between harmless flirting and something more serious was gone. I knew it, but I didn't care. The connection I felt with him felt like a breath of fresh air. I hadn't realized how starved I was for it. Then came the day when he invited me to his place. It wasn't something I had expected, but when he asked, my stomach flipped. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it would change everything. But part of me couldn't say no. "I want to show you something," he said, his voice low, almost teasing. I hesitated, but only for a second. "What is it?" "You'll see when you get here." There was a pause, then he added, "Don't think too much about it. Just come." I felt my heart race. This wasn't just a casual thing anymore. I was about to cross a line, and I knew it. I stood there, phone in hand, and in that moment, I realized I had already made my decision. I wasn't sure if it was the right one, but I was going. I was going to see where this would take me. I don't know what I was expecting when I walked into his apartment. Maybe something like the movies. A slow, inevitable build-up, a moment of confession, followed by the inevitable crossing of boundaries. But instead, when I arrived, the atmosphere was different. He greeted me with that same easy smile, but this time, there was an edge to it. A tension that I hadn't noticed before. It was like we both knew what was about to happen, but neither of us was willing to say it out loud. His place was cozy, but it had that polished, almost clinical feel. Everything was neat, clean, and perfectly arranged. It looked like it belonged to someone who was used to being in control. When I stepped in, he offered me a drink, and I hesitated, but I couldn't bring myself to refuse. I wanted to pretend everything was still normal, that I could turn this into something harmless. "So, what's this thing you wanted to show me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. He handed me the drink, his fingers brushing mine in a way that sent a jolt through me. "It's not something you can see, not exactly. It's something I want you to feel." I couldn't meet his eyes. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking slightly as I took the glass. "Feel?" "Yeah," he said, stepping closer. "You've been running on autopilot for so long. It's time to wake up." I wanted to laugh it off, to make a joke, but I couldn't. I knew what he meant. I had been drifting for so long, just going through the motions of my life, that I had forgotten what it was like to feel truly alive. He was offering me that feeling, and I didn't know if I could resist it anymore. We stood there for a moment, in the middle of his living room, the silence stretching between us. I could hear my own breath, shallow and fast. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You've been holding back for too long. It's okay to want more." Before I could respond, he reached out, his hand resting lightly on my arm. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. My mind was screaming at me to stop, but my body was moving on its own, drawn to him like a magnet. "I've been thinking about you," he said, his voice low and steady. "About how much you need to feel something. Real. Something that's yours." I looked up at him, my breath caught in my throat. "I don't know if I can." "Don't think," he whispered, his hand gently cupping my chin, tilting my face upward. "Just feel." It happened in a moment of weakness, of surrender. I closed my eyes, and for a fleeting second, I imagined what it would be like to not think about the consequences, to just live in that moment. And before I could stop myself, I kissed him. It wasn't a passionate, wild kiss, but it was enough to shatter everything that had been holding me back. The guilt, the doubts. They all disappeared the second our lips touched. I heard him exhale softly, and then his hands were on me, pulling me closer. My heart was racing, but I couldn't stop myself. I didn't want to. He was giving me something I hadn't realized I was missing. A kind of attention, a kind of desire that made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just someone's wife. For the next few hours, we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. It was as if words weren't enough. It was physical, raw, real. Every touch, every glance, every movement felt like a release, like something I had been holding inside for too long was finally coming out. And for the first time in years, I felt like I was truly seen. It wasn't just about the physical connection, though that was intense in itself. It was about the way he made me feel. Important, valued, wanted. Afterward, we lay there in silence, and I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. But it was different this time. It wasn't the kind of guilt I had expected. It wasn't about shame. It was more of a realization. I had crossed a line, yes. But in that moment, it didn't feel wrong. It felt necessary. "You okay?" he asked quietly, his voice a little rough. I nodded even though I wasn't sure what I was feeling. "I don't know," I whispered. "I didn't expect this." He kissed the top of my head. "It's okay," he said. "You needed this. I could see it. And I'm not going anywhere." His words were comforting, but they also made me uneasy. I knew deep down that this wasn't just a fleeting thing. I wasn't sure what was going to happen next, but I couldn't pretend like nothing had changed. I had let myself cross that line, and I didn't know how to go back. The next morning, I woke up in his bed, the remnants of last night still hanging in the air. I had to go home. I had to face my husband, the man who didn't know what I had done. And part of me felt like I was betraying him, but another part of me, the part that had been buried for so long, felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. As I dressed, I glanced at my phone. There was a message from my husband. "Can we talk tonight? I've been thinking a lot. I miss you." I stared at the words for a long time. He missed me. But did I still miss him? I took a deep breath and tried to ignore the wave of guilt that crashed over me. I wasn't ready to face what I had done. I wasn't ready to face the truth. Not yet. But I knew, deep down, that everything had changed. I had no idea what to expect when I walked through the door that evening. I was still reeling from everything that had happened, still trying to make sense of the guilt, the thrill, the betrayal. I felt like I was drowning, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find the way back. The weight of what I'd done was hanging over me, but I couldn't talk about it. Not yet. When I entered the house, it was eerily quiet. The lights were dimmed, and my husband was sitting at the kitchen table, his hands clasped in front of him. He looked calm, almost too calm. It made my stomach churn. Hey, I said, forcing a smile. I tried to sound casual, but I couldn't ignore the tightness in my chest. He didn't smile back. Sit down, he said, his voice steady but cold. I froze for a moment. Something in his tone, something about his stillness, told me this wasn't just a casual conversation. Something was wrong, and I had a sinking feeling I already knew what it was. But I sat down anyway, my heart hammering in my chest. Is everything okay? I asked, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were meaningless. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he just looked at me, his eyes tired but knowing. I've been thinking a lot, he said finally. About everything. I felt a knot twist in my stomach. I wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. I didn't know what to say. I've known for a while now, he said, his voice surprisingly calm. I've known something was off. But I wanted to give you space. I wanted to see if you would come to me on your own. I wanted to give you the chance to decide what you really wanted. My breath caught in my throat. I felt the heat rise to my face, the guilt threatening to consume me. What do you mean? I whispered, though deep down I already knew. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving mine. I knew something was going on. I didn't have proof at first, but I knew. It didn't take long to figure it out. My eyes widened. How? How did you know? He shook his head, a tired smile flickering on his lips. It wasn't hard. I saw the signs. The way you started pulling away. The way you couldn't look me in the eye anymore. The way you stopped caring about us. I saw it. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. He wasn't angry, not in the way I expected. He wasn't shouting or accusing me. He was just resigned, and that made everything worse. I wanted to believe that maybe it was just a phase, he continued, his voice quiet. But then I started noticing the messages. The way you'd look at your phone and quickly hide it when I came in the room. The late nights. The way you started dressing differently. I started to put the pieces together. I couldn't hold his gaze anymore. I looked down at my hands, trying to steady my breathing. The shame was suffocating. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have thought I could keep this from him? I didn't want to confront you until I was sure. He said, his voice even. I needed to know that it wasn't just my imagination. So, I gave you the space. I watched. I waited. And it didn't take long. In 2 days, you made your choice. His words hit me like a slap to the face. In 2 days? He knew? I thought he had no idea, that he hadn't seen the signs. I thought I could keep it hidden, at least for a while longer. But he knew. And he'd been waiting, letting me make my own choice. I gave you 2 years, he said quietly, his voice almost a whisper now. 2 years of trying to get your attention, of trying to reach you, of trying to make you feel seen, loved, appreciated. 2 years of doing everything I could think of to get you to notice me again. His words stung, more than I expected. I felt the weight of it all. The years of him trying, while I pulled away, while I sought something in someone else. I'm sorry. I whispered, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. He looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in a long while, I felt small. You think you're sorry. You think that changes anything. He shook his head slowly, his voice full of pain. It doesn't. Not really. I gave you everything I had in you. He paused, taking a deep breath. You threw it all away. You didn't just cheat on me. You cheated on us. You gave up on us, without even trying to fix it. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I didn't mean to hurt you, I said, the words coming out in a whisper. But I knew it was too late for apologies, too late for explanations. I had made my choices, and now we were here. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, he said, his voice softer now, though still full of sorrow. But you did, and I need you to understand that. I need you to understand that you can't just walk away from something like this. Not without consequences. I closed my eyes, feeling the tears welling up. I wanted to apologize again, to beg for forgiveness, but I knew it wouldn't fix anything. Not now. Not after everything. Maybe I should have confronted you sooner. He continued, his voice low but steady. But I wanted to believe we could fix it, that we could still find our way back. But now I see it clearly. It's too late. You've already made your choice. The room was silent for a long moment. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what I could say. It was over. I had betrayed him, and now, I had to face the consequences. I'm done, he said finally, standing up and walking to the door. I can't keep doing this. I gave you everything I had. And now, it's time for me to let go. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, frozen, as he walked out of the room. I heard the sound of the door closing behind him, and I knew that my life would never be the same.